You don't belong here. I'm going to need you to leave the premises right now. Sir, I'm not going anywhere. I have every right to be here. I don't think you understand me. This is a place of business. You need to go, now, before I call the owner. Go ahead, call him. Excuse me? I am the owner, dummy. The camera was already rolling when Mark Stevenson walked into his own dealership on a Tuesday morning in Memphis, Tennessee, and a man he had never seen before tried to throw him out of it. What the man making demands that morning didn't know was that Mark Stevenson had built that dealership from nothing. 12 years, 0 investors. He had sat in that exact lobby after hours, studying tax codes and financing agreements until the numbers blurred. He had signed the deed himself. His name was on the building permit. His face was in the founding documents filed with Shelby County in 2012. And none of that would matter for the next 4 minutes. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments right now. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like this one need to be seen, and your support is how we make sure they are. Because what happened next, inside that showroom on 3 separate cameras, would cost one man everything he thought he had. And it would follow him for the rest of his life. Stay with me. This one matters. The man doing the demanding that morning was Craig Dunbar, 41 years old, 17 months into his role as a newly hired sales floor manager at Stevenson Auto Group, a position he had applied for online, interviewed for twice, and accepted at a salary that Mark Stevenson himself had approved. Craig Dunbar had never met his employer in person. That detail alone would become the centerpiece of everything that followed. But here is what made that Tuesday morning more than just a case of mistaken identity. Craig Dunbar had a history. Before landing at Stevenson Auto Group, he had cycled through 3 dealerships in 4 years, let go from 2 of them under circumstances his references conveniently never mentioned. A former colleague at his previous employer, a Nissan group in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, later told investigators that Dunbar had a pattern, a very specific pattern. He was comfortable, some said aggressive, about deciding who looked like they belonged and who didn't, who looked like a customer, who looked like staff, and who, in his estimation, looked like neither. He had filed 2 internal complaints at his previous job, both against black colleagues he claimed were not following protocol. Both complaints were dismissed. He had been written up once for a customer interaction that escalated unnecessarily. The customer, records would later show, was a black man in his 50s who had come in to collect a vehicle he had already paid for in full. Dunbar had questioned whether the paperwork was real. The oddity complaint went nowhere. So when Craig Dunbar spotted Mark Stevenson walking through the front entrance of Stevenson Auto Group that Tuesday, dressed casually, moving with the ease of a man who owned the floor he was walking on, something in Dunbar's mind made a decision. A fast one, a wrong one. He did not ask questions. He did not check the staff directory. He did not look at the portrait hanging on the wall near the reception desk, the framed photograph that had been there since the dealership opened, the one with Mark Stevenson's name printed beneath it in clean black letters. He walked straight over, and he started talking. That was Craig Dunbar's first mistake. It would not be his last. To understand why what happened next was so extraordinary, you need to understand exactly who Mark Stevenson is. Not who Craig Dunbar assumed he was. Who he actually is. Mark Stevenson grew up in South Memphis, 3rd of 5 children. His mother worked double shifts at a laundry facility on Winchester Road. His father drove a delivery truck 6 days a week. There were no trust funds, no family connections, no shortcuts of any kind. What there was work. Stevenson graduated from Melrose High School in 1998 with a 3.8 GPA. He earned a partial academic scholarship to the University of Memphis, where he studied business administration and finished in the top 12% of his graduating class. He paid the remainder of his tuition himself, working nights at an auto parts store on Summer Avenue. That job changed everything. He fell in love with the industry, not the cars, the business of cars, the margins, the financing structures, the customer psychology, the inventory cycles. He studied it the way other people study medicine. By 26, he was a finance manager at a mid-sized dealership in Germantown. By 29, he was their top-performing department head, responsible for $4.3 million in annual financing revenue. His general manager, Leitao, the time later said in a 2019 interview, and this is a direct quote, that Stevenson was the most commercially intelligent person he had worked with in 30 years in the business. In 2012, at 32 years old, Mark Stevenson signed the papers on his own lot. Stevenson Auto Group opened with 11 employees and a used inventory of 43 vehicles. Today, it operates with 61 full-time staff members. It has been named the top-rated independent dealership in Shelby County 3 years in a row. It has moved over 12,000 vehicles since opening. It has generated more than $47 million in total revenue. Mark Stevenson has also quietly donated over $340,000 to college scholarship funds serving first-generation students in the Memphis metro area. He serves on the board of 2 local business development organizations. He employs people who grew up in the same neighborhood he did. He built something real from nothing over 12 years. And on a Tuesday morning in Memphis, in his own building, a man 17 months into a job Stevenson gave him decided he didn't belong there. It was 9:14 in the morning. Mark Stevenson had come in early that Tuesday to walk the floor before the day's first appointments. He did this often, quietly, without announcement. He liked to see the operation the way a customer would see it. He was wearing dark jeans, a clean white t-shirt, and a pair of Nike Air Force Ones. No suit, no lanyard, no name badge. He had barely made it 12 feet past the entrance when Craig Dunbar appeared. Dunbar moved fast, purposeful, the kind of walk that announces itself before the words do. He positioned himself directly in Stevenson's path, not beside him, not approaching from an angle, directly in front of him. A physical block. "Excuse me, can I help you with something?" The tone was not the tone of a man offering help. Stevenson stopped, looked at him calmly. "No, I'm good, thank you." Dunbar didn't move. "Are you here to see someone?" "Because we're not open for walk-ins yet. You're going to need to wait outside or come back at 10. Stevenson studied him for a moment, still calm. "I don't need to wait outside. I'm fine right here." That's when Dunbar's voice shifted, dropped lower, took on the particular edge of a man who has decided he is in charge of a situation he does not fully understand. "Sir, I'm not going to ask you again. This is a place of business. You need to go." 3 members of the sales staff were now watching from across the floor. One of them, a junior sales associate named Deja Holloway, 8 months into her job, later told investigators she knew immediately what she was watching. She said she considered walking over. She said she froze instead. She did, however, reach into her pocket, and she pressed record. Stevenson's voice, captured clearly on that recording, never once rose above a conversational level. "You want to call the owner? Go ahead, call him." Dunbar pulled out his phone. Stevenson watched him do it. And then, with the patience of a man who had spent 12 years building something from the ground up and had nothing left to prove to anyone, he said it. "I am the owner." The floor went silent. Deja Holloway's phone captured everything. 43 seconds of footage, steady frame, clear audio. Mark Stevenson, standing with his hands relaxed at his sides, voice level, expression composed. Craig Dunbar beside him, posture rigid, jaw tight, the particular stillness of a man beginning to understand the size of the mistake he has just made. But Holloway's phone was not the only camera running. Stevenson Auto Group has 11 security cameras installed across the showroom floor, the parking lot, and the service entrance. All 11 were operational that morning. The footage from camera 4, positioned above the reception desk, angled directly toward the main entrance, captured the entire confrontation from the moment Dunbar moved. And now, to block Stevenson's path to the moment the floor went silent, every step, every gesture, every word confirmed by the audio from Holloway's recording. Camera 7, mounted near the finance office corridor, caught something the other angles missed. It caught the framed portrait, the one hanging on the wall near reception, Mark Stevenson's photograph, his name printed beneath it, visible in the background of the entire exchange. Dunbar had walked past it to intercept Stevenson. He had been 3 feet from it. He had not looked at it once. 2 other sales staff members confirmed what Holloway had witnessed. Raymond Okafor, a senior sales associate with 4 years at the dealership, submitted a written statement describing Dunbar's tone as aggressive and targeted. He noted that in his 4 years working under Mark Stevenson, he had never seen Stevenson raise his voice at anyone. Not a difficult customer, not an underperforming employee, not once. A customer who had arrived early and was waiting in the seating area near the entrance also witnessed the confrontation. She had not been noticed by Dunbar. She sat still. She watched the entire thing. She later called the dealership's main line and asked to speak to someone in management. When she was connected, she said simply, "I saw what happened this morning. I want to make sure someone knows." 11 cameras, 3 staff witnesses, 1 customer witness, 1 phone recording. Craig Dunbar had walked into the most documented 4 minutes of his professional life, and he had done it to the man whose name was on the building. Before we go any further, I need to stop here for a second, because I want to know what you're thinking right now. Craig Dunbar walked past a framed portrait of his own employer, 3 feet away, and still made the decision he made. Type portrait in the comments if you think that single detail tells you everything you need to know about what was really driving his behavior that morning. And I want to ask you something directly. Have you or someone you know ever walked into a space you had every right to be in and been made to feel like you didn't belong there? Maybe it wasn't a dealership. Maybe it was an office, a store, a neighborhood, a building with your own name on it. The comments are a safe space. Share your story below. Because what makes this case bigger than Craig Dunbar, bigger than one dealership in Memphis on one Tuesday morning, is that Mark Stevenson's experience is not rare. It is not an accident, and it is not isolated. What happened next would prove exactly that. Stay with me. Deja Holloway posted the video at 11:47 that same morning. She uploaded it to her personal TikTok account with a single line of caption. No hashtags, no commentary, just the footage and 7 words. "He owns the place. Watch till the end." By 2 p.m., it had 200,000 views. By 6 p.m., that number had crossed 1.4 million. By the time Deja Holloway went to sleep that night, her phone had stopped being able to keep up with the notifications. The video had been shared 84,000 times. It had been reposted across Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook simultaneously, each platform feeding the others, the algorithm on every one of them pushing it further and faster with each share. By midnight, it had 4.7 million views across platforms combined. By Wednesday morning, it had been seen by more than 9 million people. The comment sections told their own story. Thousands of people tagging friends, tagging family members, tagging coworkers, hundreds of people sharing their own versions of the same experience in their own words. The phrase, "I am the owner," became the caption on thousands of reposts within hours. People were not just watching the video, they were living inside it. The local Memphis news picked it up by Tuesday evening. By Wednesday morning, it had been covered by outlets in Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, and Los Angeles. By Thursday, it had been featured on 3 national morning shows. Journalists began making calls. Requests for comment flooded the dealership's main line. Stevenson Auto Group's Google rating, already strong, jumped to its highest point since opening as customers flooded in to leave 5-star reviews, not about cars, but about Mark Stevenson himself. Craig Dunbar's name surfaced publicly by Wednesday afternoon. It had not been included in the original video. It did not need to be. 3 separate people who recognized him from the footage had already posted it across multiple platforms before noon. The internet had identified him before any official process had begun. And with his name now public, his employment history, his prior complaints, his pattern of behavior, the story stopped being about one bad morning in a Memphis dealership. It became something much larger, something that could not be taken back. By Wednesday afternoon, Craig Dunbar had been placed on immediate administrative leave. The official statement from Stevenson Auto Group's legal team was 3 sentences long. It confirmed the incident. It confirmed the leave. It said an internal review was underway. It did not need to say anything else. The footage had already said everything. Dunbar was terminated 4 days later, a Friday, 17 months and 11 days after Mark Stevenson had approved his hiring. He was walked out of the building he had tried to remove his employer from, escorted by 2 members of dealership management, his personal items in a standard cardboard box. His access badge was deactivated at 2:31 p.m. That should have been the end of it. It was not close to the end of it. Within 3 weeks of the incident, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission had opened a formal inquiry into Dunbar's conduct and the dealership's broader HR practices, specifically examining whether Dunbar's prior complaints against black colleagues at his previous employer had been adequately surfaced during the hiring process. Background screening procedures were formally reviewed. By the 6th week, Mark Stevenson's legal team had filed a civil suit. The complaint was detailed and specific. It cited the recorded footage, the security camera evidence, the written staff statements, the customer witness account, and Dunbar's documented prior conduct across 3 previous employers. The filing sought damages for discrimination, hostile conduct, and professional harm to Stevenson's standing within his own business. The case did not go to trial. 14 weeks after that Tuesday morning, Craig Dunbar agreed to a settlement. The terms included a financial payment to Mark Stevenson in the amount of $1.85 million. As part of the agreement, Dunbar was also required to complete a formal workplace conduct program and was permanently barred from any managerial role in the state of Tennessee for a period of 7 years. His career in automotive sales was over. His professional reputation, now permanently attached to 9 million views of 43 seconds of footage, followed him into every room he would ever try to enter professionally from that point forward. The pension he had been counting on from his previous employer had already been forfeited during the prior termination proceedings. He had nothing left to fall back on. He had done that entirely to himself. But here's what I need you to understand. Craig Dunbar did not happen in a vacuum. What occurred in that Memphis showroom on a Tuesday morning was not an isolated incident of one misguided man making one catastrophic error in judgment. It was the visible tip of something much deeper, something that had been building long before Craig Dunbar ever walked into Stevenson Auto Group, and something that will continue long after his name is forgotten. Consider the pipeline that produced him. 2 previous employers had documented complaints about his behavior. 2 formal records written, filed, and yet those same employers provided references that said nothing. Screening processes that were designed specifically to surface patterns like his failed. An entire HR onboarding system processed Craig Dunbar, approved Craig Dunbar, and handed him a managerial role with direct authority over other human beings without once flagging what was sitting plainly in his employment history. The system did not catch him. The system moved him forward. And Craig Dunbar is not alone in that pipeline. A 2021 study by the Harvard Business Review found that black business owners across the United States report experiencing credibility challenges, being mistaken for staff, questioned about their authority, or asked to prove ownership, at rates significantly higher than their white counterparts. The research identified this pattern not as random rudeness, but as a systemic credibility gap. A default assumption built into professional environments about who looks like they are in charge and who does not. Mark Stevenson had built a $47 million business. His name was on the deed, the permits, the building, and the wall. And still, the default assumption in that showroom that morning was that he did not belong there. That assumption did not come from nowhere. It was taught. It was reinforced. It was passed through institutions, hiring pipelines, professional cultures, and unchecked individual biases until it walked through the front door of a dealership in Memphis and tried to remove the man who built it. In the aftermath of the case, Stevenson Auto Group overhauled its entire hiring screening process. Third-party HR audit was commissioned. New protocols for employment reference verification were implemented across all 61 staff positions. One incident, one dealership, real structural change. That is what accountability looks like when it is taken seriously. Mark Stevenson gave one public statement. He did not give it on the steps of a courthouse. He did not give it on a morning show panel surrounded by lawyers and cameras. He gave it on a Wednesday evening, 6 days after the incident, sitting behind the desk in his office at Stevenson Auto Group, the same office he had furnished himself when the building was still empty, recorded simply on a phone, posted directly to the dealership's social media page. He spoke for 4 minutes and 12 seconds. He did not mention Craig Dunbar by name. He did not express anger. He did not perform outrage for the camera or play to the millions of people he knew were watching. He spoke the way he had stood in that showroom, measured, direct, unhurried, like a man who had nothing to prove and had known that for a very long time. He said that what happened to him happens to black business owners, black professionals, and black people in ordinary spaces every single day, in rooms where they have every right to exist, and that the difference in his case was not the experience itself, but the cameras that happened to be running. He said he was not interested in revenge. He was interested in the conversation being had in homes, offices, and boardrooms because of what those cameras captured. He said he hoped Craig Dunbar would use what happened as an opportunity to genuinely examine something in himself. And then he announced that 70% of the settlement amount, $1.295 million, would be directed into an expanded version of the scholarship fund he had been quietly running for 6 years. The fund, which supports first-generation college students from South Memphis, would be formally renamed and restructured as a permanent institution. Applications, he said, would open within 90 days. He thanked his staff by name, all 61 of them. He was back on the floor the following Monday morning. Same dark jeans, same white t-shirt, same quiet walk through the showroom he built, checking the operation the way a customer would see it. Nothing about him had changed, because nothing about what he had built needed to. The building still had his name on it. It always had. Mark Stevenson walked into his own building and was told he didn't belong there. He never raised his voice. He never lost his composure. He let the cameras, the evidence, and 12 years of undeniable work speak for him. And then he took $1.295 million and put it back into the community that built him. That is not just a story about one man and one dealership in Memphis, Tennessee. That is a masterclass in dignity. Now I want to hear from you. Drop your answer in the comments right now. What shocked you most about this story? Was it the portrait on the wall that Dunbar walked straight past, the settlement amount, or the fact that 2 previous employers said nothing? Tell me below. If you watched this until the end and you are still here, then you already know this channel is different. Hit that subscribe button right now. Share this video with one person today, not for the algorithm, for Mark Stevenson, for every person who has ever been made to feel like they didn't belong somewhere they built with their own hands. See you in the next one.